My name is Dr. Valerie Green Amos, and it is my pleasure to greet you today. I am representing the amazing Harbor Area chapter of the Links Incorporated. The Links were founded in 1946 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we here in Southern California have great pride in our Harbor Area chapter. We were founded in Long Beach in 1966 and have a continuous 55-year record of impeccable service and amazing friendship. Today we're launching our Green Table Talks. Our Green Table Talks really focuses on intergenerational dialogue. The idea about the links is that we focus on friendship and service, but it's so important, it's incredibly valuable that we understand how we communicate best with one another. So today we're going to take a deep dive into what really sets each generation apart, what makes us unified as a sisterhood, and what really makes us inspire one another. So you'll be hearing from our moderator, Lydia Sincor Templeton Esquire, as she is a member of the Harbor Area chapter, as well as the other amazing women who will speak to you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to hearing from you about your efforts around intergenerational communication. Happy Friendship Month from the Links Incorporated Harbor Area chapter.
Thank you, Dr. Valerie Green Amos. Welcome to Green Table Talks. Today's topic is linking our generations, building the communications divide. All organizations can benefit from strengthening communications from within. The conversations can be at work, at church, relationships, or organizations that we're all members of. But today, we are hosting this roundtable to engage in an organic conversation about what it takes to build the communication divide between generations. Let's examine the characteristics of our generations. First, the traditionalist. Born 1928 to 1945, they prefer face-to-face communications and writing formal letters. Baby boomers are born from 1946 to 1964 and use the telephone as their preferred mode of communication. And they're the millennials, who are born from 1981 to 1996. That's my category. Their preferred communication is text or social media. Anything online makes a millennial happy. So let's get this roundtable started. We have three phenomenal panelists. We're going to start with our traditionalist first, and I'm going to refer to her as Miss Hall. Miss Phyllis Hall, a mother of 3 children, served as a volunteer for several community organizations, including the wonderful Genesee Center for Battered Women and Children, where she was a board member. She raised and supported her family and primarily worked and supported her husband with her administrative and financial skills in his medical practice. Welcome, Miss Phyllis.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, we have Contessa M. Charles Esquire. She is our beautiful baby boomer. She's a mother and a partner at Jackson Lewis, a prestigious law firm specializing in labor and employment law. She is a sought-after speaker and is an expert in several employment and labor topics and is a well-respected parliamentarian. Contessa is passionate about volunteering and supporting young talent in our community. Let us welcome Attorney Contessa M. Charles.
Thank you.
And then there's my fellow millennial, Dr. Belinda Daughtry, our millennial who is a speech language pathologist. She is an assistant professor at Cal State University, Long Beach, and specializes in intervention and research with children with autism on the spectrum disorder. And my friends, you have now met 3 phenomenal women who comprise our panelists for this vigorous discussion. Welcome.
Thank you.
My friends, the three key trends that shape generations are parenting, economics, and technology. And I want to start this conversation off discussing technology. Okay, Miss Phyllis, let's start with you. Tell us, do you own a computer, and what do you think of them?
I do not own a computer. I think very highly of computers, but it just isn't for me. Computers serve the now generation of all these different people in a different way that it would have served me. I don't need a lot of things that it enhances everybody, well, the younger generation. It enhances their life tremendously. Mm-hmm. But I don't need that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't have a computer.
And if we were to give you a computer and say we would want you to use it for 1 week and not use your telephone, how would you respond?
I said, give it to somebody else. It's not necessarily a good thing for me.
It's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to our traditionalists on the use of a computer?
For me, my advice would just be that it can help to bridge connections. I was just 30 minutes ago giving a presentation to a group of professionals in Belize, and so the way that it helps to connect people, I think, is really helpful. Mm-hmm. And so just thinking about all the people who were on that meeting from all different spaces, that we were all able to come together for an hour and have a discussion was wonderful.
And Miss Phyllis, would you give our friend Belinda advice on not using a computer? What could she do?
You know, it's really hard for them to understand where my generation is coming from. I understand very much that it bridges the gap between people from different locations and all that. But I don't need that. I communicate with my friends and my family and business people just fine. So I don't see how it's can enhance me. I'm doing very well as is.
Well, the baby boomers, what did you think about the computer?
Well, I totally understand and appreciate the benefit of the computer, right? Using it at work, staying connected, being able, particularly during the pandemic, Zoom meetings, bringing people together from, different cities, different countries, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm of the generation where we appreciate just, face-to-face communication. And we enjoy being in a room together and talking and sharing and fellowshipping. And I enjoy writing letters to people. I enjoy receiving letters and cards in the mail. And it's almost like a treat now, to get a card in the mail. Mm-hmm. It's a special occasion or a special event. And there's a little bit of excitement with respect to getting an old-fashioned handwritten letter in the mail. With a computer, we email each other every day. We text each other 10 times a day. It becomes almost, uneventful. When you get a text, you're just like, oh man, another text or another email. And so I think letter writing, taking the time to speak to someone on the phone, that's kind of special.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I was fine with the computer also. Mm-hmm. And then just sending emails, text messages. And one day they introduced something called Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and those things. And one thing I found interesting, I saw on one of the social media sites, it says, I'm in a relationship. And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm in a relationship. Right. Okay, so is that how they announce relationships these days?
Right.
And it is. We call it a bae probate.
Yes. Talk about that. Can you share with me? And let me ask you a question too. How would you respond to someone if via social media, is that how you break up too?
So it's interesting. I always have thought about that because I never probated anyone on the internet before my current husband. So I don't know how you scrub after, but there is a whole process. You do scrub, you might redo everything, usually take a social media pause, and then when you come back, all the pictures of that person are removed. So that is typically how that has been done. But yes, that is certainly a concern in today's space as people think about that. There are people who make distinct efforts to not show their relationship on social media. They might show a location or a hand, but not a face, right? So that is oftentimes the case. Or they might only show someone on their stories and not on their wall so that it doesn't stay. It's 24 hours. So that might be a little bit different. I remember my current husband, he really thought, he's like, oh, she really likes me. She finally posted me on Instagram. It was like a whole situation. So it is certainly an element there of newness, I think.
And see, that's just so different from my generation. I mean, we value privacy,
Yes.
right? And when we're in a relationship, I'm from that old school where you court. You know, there's a courtship where he calls you, he takes you out to dinner. You don't blast to the whole world, I'm going out to dinner with this potential boyfriend tonight, you know? And so you enjoy the courtship, you enjoy the fellowship, but in privacy,
Yes.
right? And you share an intimacy with that one person. I just can't even understand how you could be intimate with someone and put it on social media. I just don't understand that.
Everything's made for TV now. So.
No, you bring up a good point. Everything made for TV. Do you think the reality shows impact our communication?
Yes and no. I mean, reality shows are not real life, but I do. There's an element of it that I appreciate because there's always something there for posterity's sake. So, one of the things I think about, for example, when my husband proposed, he was very into having this proposal video and situation. So he proposed where we first met at a New Year's Eve party at this house in the hills and said we were going to dinner, and we go and there's flowers and there's candles and there's a whole videographer, and I'm like, what is happening? But so now I have that for you know, everyone to view, and our moment ourselves was to ourselves, but it was definitely viewed, and I never published it or put it anywhere. But we did show it to our families, things like that. So I do think now that everyone thinks quite a bit about how to capture these moments so that they can kind of always live in that space. I had a friend who also just got engaged, and they had a drone, and it was a whole situation. We were in Catalina, there was a drone, he did it right by the water. But now when they have this video and they edited it, and it was, you know, you see like them all going away and the guests who were there were all waving at the drone. It was a whole production.
Wow.
But this is also how we exist in this space. We set up photos, we take pictures. When we take pictures, we think about the background and the setting and the lighting. So I think it fits the times.
So how did your husband communicate with you and your family about your dating and being an item? And back then, what did they call it? Was it girlfriend, boyfriend, or was it courting? Tell us a little bit about that.
It was courting, and it was girlfriend. That's my girlfriend. That's my boyfriend, and we were very private with each other. You know, we talked quite a bit to each other. We touched. We held hands. We talked on the telephone, and it was just so what's the word I want to use? It's so romantic.
Yes. I love it.
And we danced quite a bit, and we danced holding each other. You know, we didn't get out there and all this stuff. And he's over there in that corner dancing, and I'm over on this corner.
Right.
But we felt each other.
I appreciate
and
that.
held hands,
Yes.
and I just can't even imagine what this.
A drone?
And we cared about the parents, you know.
Yes.
We wanted to be respectful to his parents as well as mine, and the family, and that meant a lot to both of us. But a drone? Oh,
I didn't have a drone. I just want to clarify I didn't have a drone.
but I mean, it's
I
out
did have
there.
a videographer with lighting, so
It's out there.
very well kept.
And we were so private, we wouldn't even think about putting any of our information out there for the world to see.
Right.
And that's why it's hard for me to relate to the new generations. Even though I appreciate progress, I love the fact that you have this avenue, you know, the computers and whatever is available to you now. But I just don't need it. I've lived through those stages. And good luck to you. But the thoughts of me kissing my boyfriend at that time out there in space, you're talking about a no-no.
Yeah, a social
Yeah,
no-no. It was a
yeah.
social no-no
I
back
don't
then.
want people to see me
Right.
half dressed, slobbering all over.
Well, people post all of that nowadays.
I
It's a little
know,
intense.
I
Even
know.
for me, I'm like, that's a lot going
Yeah.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're talking about core values here.
Right.
Let's look at the impact of core values on communication. For the traditionalists, core values there are two: discipline and respect for authority. So in the generation of traditionalists, it's more like you're seen and not heard, and seen and how did that respect for authority play out in the traditionalist generation?
Oh, we had a lot of respect for our elders, for people in the community, for our schools. A lot of respect for anybody that we came in contact with. You know, I had a lot of respect for your mother because she's going to tell my mother what I'm
Yes.
doing wrong, and my mother believed her. And so the community is able to what?
Almost parent in a way. Like
Yes,
raise-
yes.
A village. It takes
Yeah.
a village.
Yes.
And we as the children had a lot of respect for them. You know, we didn't worry about the fact that your mother told my mother what I was doing wrong. We didn't stop talking to the lady.
And if you disagree with your elder, would you let them know what you thought, or
No.
exactly? Let's talk to the millennial.
The complete opposite.
The values for the millennials are you and I: achievement and self-confidence. So how does that play out with authority and sharing what your opinions are?
Sure, I think that is accurate, but I think there's an aspect of culture there too. So I think I've always had the respect for elders and authority and titles. And I think it plays out that there's a blend of the age time shifting, but also Black culture remains very much so the same. So I do feel like that's a bit of a difference. Although you see that still shifting now, I think there's a whole shift, at least in parenting and how I see my generation parenting their own children, in just making their children feel more able to disagree, more able to voice their opinions to older adults if they do disagree. And so I do see that as a difference that is shifting, but still very much so aligned with how it's been.
And how they share their communications. Let's talk about when they disagree with authority. How do you see that being communicated in what type of way?
So I think that there's a way to disagree that is respectful, but I think that prior, maybe just the idea of disagreeing itself was disrespectful. And so I think for my generation, I think there's more of a point to express a difference of opinion, and it can be done in a way that is still differential and respectful, but that we can agree to disagree. and that's okay, as opposed to just the thought of, well, that's my elder and whatever they say goes, and I don't want to even express that there is a potential difference of opinion.
So for baby boomers, what is characterized as being, we believe that anything is possible. And notice I said we because I'm a part of all three of the generations right now. So anything is possible and we're team oriented. Do you see sometimes as baby boomers that we sometimes diminish our opinions to try to include everyone, or how does that play out in your communications by being a team-oriented person?
I think that it's just natural in our DNA at our age group because of everything that we experience to always think of ourselves in terms of teams and goals. And our generation is very competitive in the sense that, we feel like, there's a race and we got to get there, we got to win. And we got to do it, though, as a team, because we know we can't do it by ourselves. And so that's why it's important for my generation, and what I see is that we reach to the generation above us, the traditionalists, and the generation below us, the Gen X's, the millennials, to help us get through. At work, I'll give you an example. I'm completely dependent on my junior associates to get the initial documents done, because I'm not going to write on the computer a 30-page brief. That's just not going to happen. But these millennials and Generation Xers, they can put together a legal brief in an hour. And then I take it and edit it. But if I had to do it from scratch, it would be a long process. So it's important for me to look at them as part of my team. And that is my perspective in everything that I do, to look at how I can help someone else and someone else can help me. And I think within organizations, it's important for us to, in order to succeed as a chapter or an organization, to include everybody. And so you'll see people in the baby boomer generation absolutely networking with the older members and the younger members.
So on your team, let's talk about your experience at work. I'm sure you've experienced some millennials. How do they accept constructive criticism? And I know that you're a partner, so there's a little bit of power in that position. However, how do you see them?
It's tough because let me tell you, they will push back. They will in a second say, I'm sorry, what do you mean? You told me this, I did what you told me to do. And so what you have to do is, I am, with this generation, very differential. Even though they can completely mess up a brief or completely mess up an assignment, I'm still very constructive with them. The criticism is there, but it's very constructive to bring them back, because I'm not saying they have to be coddled, but they do have to be handled in a very gentle way, because they will come back and snap at you. And so what you have to do is handle them gently, give them the constructive criticism. And I'll say this, when I am doing performance reviews for my associates, if you're not giving someone a fantastic review, you have to spell out every problem, every deficiency, and back it up, because they're going to challenge you. They're going to say, but you asked me on January 14th at 3:30 to do it this way. And so you have to be able to back it up, because they're going to push back. That's just who they are and how they are. They do not just accept stuff, right? And so as the partner or the baby boomer generation, you have to always think ahead, use constructive advice and criticism to get what you want, because they will rebel.
So, as millennials.
Of course, yes.
And so when we're responding to that criticism, do you think that's rooted in our core values of the self-confidence?
I don't know if that, I think that's kind of a bit of the cusp, but there was certainly a whole era of, everyone got a trophy situation.
Yes.
And I was not in that, I wasn't taught in that way. So it was, no, you came in second. So, and I think that is a difference. But I also think that, and I notice this with students sometimes as well, when I give feedback, it does have to be very concrete and rooted to exact causes, something that they can look at concretely. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, because I do think that it is more absorbable and able to give someone points where they can improve. as opposed to something that might be more general. Both facts might be true, but it gives them something to look at that they can go forward with and make a concerted effort to improve upon. So I do think that's helpful. I think a lot of times when I do get feedback, I look for, can you give me an example of that? Or can you give me a time when that was the case or when you felt that way? So I can then go reflect on that, think about some ways that I could navigate that differently. I think some of that comes with a degree of emotional intelligence and the ability to accept feedback, and that feedback doesn't have to always be positive. But there's certainly a way to receive constructive criticism in a way that you can really take that information and grow. And hopefully I think that's something that people are continuing to learn to do well.
Well, baby boomers like to make sure that people respect their experience because they have a work ethic. They work very hard to get to where they are. Since we have a baby boomer at the table, I would like for you to role model you displaying for our baby boomer your respect for her work ethic and what she has achieved as a partner of a prestigious law firm. Share with her.
Sure. I think that when we look at your generation, we think, wow, we want all of those things. And I think sometimes my generation, at times, I think they just see the outcome and not the work that was put in before that. And I think that is something that I note amongst even some of my own group at times, that we want what our parents had without realizing that they didn't always live in that house. They didn't always drive that car, right? We want to just jump in and start at that point, but that's actually not how it works. So I think there is something really great to be said and experienced about the work first, so that you really understand and value even that end point or that point of success. So I do think that there is so much value in the actual work, the getting up, the doing it day in, day out, the not needing a ticker tape parade every time you do something that you're supposed to be doing, the putting in extra. I think all of that is to be valued. And I think there's something to be said for creating this point of success so much that sometimes my generation looks and doesn't realize all of the work that came before that. So I oftentimes will talk about people want to be, Diddy, but they didn't know Sean, right? Sean had to actually work. And so you have to think about all of the steps that go into getting there. And I think with our social media and all of those things that really just show the highlight reels, you don't a lot of times see all of the behind the scenes and things that went on to get to that point.
So give me 2 tips that you would share with your colleagues, our fellow millennials. What would we say to them?
Just to put in the work when no one's looking. And I think that is something to be valued, is just you want to put in the effort without needing to be celebrated all of the time. And I think that is a struggle at times for my generation. And I think also another tip would be, because of how we're wired in that way of celebration, but you can celebrate without it being public. You can celebrate on your own. You can celebrate yourself without someone else needing to celebrate you.
And how would you pay homage to a baby boomer or traditionalist? Give us an example.
Sure. I think one of the ways that we need to do better in that is just acknowledge the things that we admire and value in our older generations, whether it's baby boomers or traditionalists, but just really being more vocal about that, recognizing them, giving them their flowers while they're here, and being very open about saying, you inspired me. The reason I got into this was because of you, or I'm really hoping to take what you have done and go further with it because I think that's what you would want me to do. And so I think the acknowledgement piece is really important.
And could you give us advice for the millennials and for baby boomers on how to recognize the traditionalists and the sacrifices they made to get to where they are and what they achieved?
I think one of the most important things when we're communicating with traditionalists is to respect them for where they are and what they've achieved and what they've experienced and lived through. And so, for example, when communicating with a traditionalist, if a traditionalist prefers using the phone, use the phone. And don't make them feel bad because you're using the phone. Or if they prefer letters or, face-to-face communications, do that. I think you have to defer to where they are and make them feel comfortable where they are. And that way they will open up and share more with you, because there's a lot to learn from traditionalists. And they just need to feel comfortable. And for example, communicating by email or text message is not comfortable for them. So you want to find out where they're at and go there. And I think that is incredibly deferential and shows a lot of respect. And you'll learn a lot. They have a lot to share. And, there's just pearls of wisdom.
Yes. The art of friendship is one that we could benefit from when people share their pearls of wisdom. If I'm developing a relationship and a friendship with you as a traditionalist, share with me what would be your advice on how you would want me to develop that relationship with you. Back in when I was younger, in which as a millennial, we had pen pals, and we also wrote letters to people. But what would you recommend for me to do now to become your good friend?
First of all, before I answer your question, as I'm sitting here listening to everything that we're discussing, I want everybody here to know that we did a fantastic job. We being parents.
Yes.
You might not realize what you were getting from us. And when I see how you developed and have grown through the years from what I started with, it really did pay off. And I think we as parents did a fantastic job, because we were there to encourage you. If you didn't have parents, there was somebody there that loved you enough to encourage you and pray for you. And when I joined the Links offered me the opportunity to enjoy the values that I held precious for me. The fact that Links was a clean-cut organization that had a lot of values that I cherish. Friendship. The members were going places. It was just a good organization to express my life and my needs and what. Well, anyway, it suited me just fine. And we were seemingly on the same playing field. I don't need anything that's special. I enjoy communicating with people that are friendly, open, those that are what do I want to call it? Going places. They're ambitious.
On the move.
Yeah. And they are outgoing. I enjoy people like that.
And you
Well, I'll
enjoy
see you
them
next week then
respond.
for lunch.
She's see you for lunch.
Yes, that's really
that
good.
person.
Yes.
Right?
I
What-
can do a lunch.
that
Yeah.
person-to-person contact.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love
that person-to-person contact makes a difference.
That does.
I was on the phone the other day and it felt weird. I was like, "What is this?" I was have to still train myself to get on the phone and talk,
Yeah.
just because I'm also used to FaceTiming so much. So I look at my phone like this, and so even holding it to my ear felt awkward. So I have to retrain things. But I love a lunch, so we're gonna do a lunch.
And now I have children, well, daughters and I have a son also, but I'm looking at the way they are living their lives. Oh, they think there's nothing like texting. And don't you want to hear somebody's voice? Take a little bit of time to simmer down call somebody just to hear their voice. And you don't have to talk 30 minutes like I do.
Right.
But that seems to me very impersonal.
Texting all the time.
Yeah.
I think, like for my dad, we talk like 4 or 5 times a week, but our conversations are only 15 minutes. But I can hear in his voice if he's doing fine physically.
It tells you a lot.
I can hear in the voice if he's stressed, if he's relaxed. He doesn't tell me everything, but I can tell when he's short with me. Then I will, for example, call a nurse and say, hey, listen, my dad was short with me today. What's going on? You know, and you hear that in a voice. You will never hear that in a text. You know, and then we have other people, like the younger generation. They're so busy. The only way I can keep up with my daughter is by text. My daughter and I haven't had a conversation on a phone in I don't know how long. So, you know, we only communicate. I know she exists because I get a text. That's it.
So what would be your tip for the younger generation in strengthening relationships with the baby boomers, with traditionalists? What would be one tip that you would ask them, give to them and say, I'd like you to do this?
Spend some quality time. Either on the telephone or in person. Texts are wonderful. They're good because they're current events. You share pictures. I mean, instant gratification. But nothing replaces one-on-one time. Nothing can replace that human touch, a hug, having coffee or having lunch together. That's quality time and that's special. And in this day and age, what we do as boomers, we look forward to that. So like my junior associates, I have to make lunch with them to see them. Otherwise, I could go months without seeing them because we communicate 100% by email and text messages. So I have to every now and then check in and take them to lunch every other month just to see how they're doing, make sure work is okay, they're getting their time in, because otherwise we would never see each other.
You know, during the pandemic, it really shocked us into reality on the importance of technology. And as a millennial, if you were in charge of an organization that had to communicate with all 4 generations, and you realize that now we're in this pandemic and I have to reach out to the traditionalists who don't have computers, tell us what would you do, or what would you recommend for your team to do to make sure the traditionalist was also involved?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is helpful is bridging it in 2 ways. So going in person and then maybe joining someone in via tech. So to show that both of those can work. And I think that helps to kind of bridge that connect a bit. At the start of the pandemic, that's what I ended up doing with my host mom in Spain who lived alone. And she was living with her son at the start of the pandemic. And so I would call him and he would put us all on a call. And so she was like, oh, now I can use WhatsApp with you and we can video chat. And she was like, okay, I think I got this. And so then when he moved and she was by herself, she would video chat with me. And I would send her a message and say, okay, is this a good time? And so that's how we would connect. And I don't think that would have been as possible if he hadn't helped us kind of set that from the beginning.
And you know what I think what we're going to see going forward in the future is just hybrid. We're not going to ever be 100% in person, and we're not going to ever be 100% remote anymore. I think, for example, within our organization, chapter meetings or committee meetings, you're absolutely going to have people who want to be in a room together, and you will have meetings together. But you always have to have this option now to video in people. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of people. There are going to be people in other states, other cities, who want to come to the meeting and want to participate and read their report, but they physically cannot make it for whatever reason. And so I think what we've learned from the pandemic is that going forward, the new normal is hybrid. We will never be 100% in person again, and we'll never be 100% remote. Otherwise, you're going to lose one side or the other, one generation or the other.
I was just talking about that with someone too, about we were talking about after the pandemic had been, and I'm just like, I am overwhelmed at the thought of having to do all the things I do right now in person. Like I just couldn't. So I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, I have to either not do a lot of other things and just really do one thing, or something has to shift, because it's not possible.
It's not
to
physically
keep
possible.
up.
It is not, because the Zoom ends at 11 and you have another Zoom.
Yes, at 11:05. So I
Yeah.
had a meeting that ended at 2:50, and at 2:50, yeah. So it was, yes.
Exactly. But we want to make sure that we focus on not leaving out any generation, especially our traditionalists, because if it were not for them, we would not be where we are. So as we look at providing advice, because each of you is an expert, you've shared some incredible advice with us, and we'd like to hear some gems of wisdom from each of you. My first gem of wisdom is to be swift to listen and slow to speak. We've heard our traditionalists say, she's not going to have a computer. She's never going to be able to Zoom. So we're going to have to respond to that. For her to be included in our church service, in faith communities, in the links, in our sororities, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, Sigma Gamma Rho. I've included all the Divine Nine. It's imperative that we listen to what they're saying. So we have to listen to them and also create and craft an innovative response to make sure our traditionalists are not left behind. I'm going to start with you.
I knew it.
Our millennial, what would be your gem for all generations to be included?
Sure. I think if I had to leave a gem, it would be just to be mindful, to think of how much better the table is with different perspectives, different experiences, different thoughts, and you only get that if everyone is indeed at the table. So figuring out how that table might need to look a little bit different, it might need to adjust a bit, but figuring out how to get everyone there to be able to contribute.
Wonderful. So you're going to include everyone by listening to having a table, a round table to listen to them.
A round table.
Very good. We're going to save the best for last. That would be the traditionalists, because you've earned that place of respect. That's one thing, is that you have to be respected for what you've achieved and who you are. Our traditionalists. At the count of 3, let's all bow to her. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, baby boomer, now your turn. Please share your gem with us.
My gem would be to think of a way where we can use not only the thoughts, the comments, the camaraderie, and the ideas of all 3 generations, but use the resources that they bring. We have to appreciate and understand the value of every generation. So we can't dismiss the youngins because they're young, and we can't dismiss our seniors because they're older. Everyone has something to contribute, and so it would be, to look at the resources that they have and the experiences that they have. I'll give you an example. I'm just thinking network connections. I mean, the traditionalists know everybody. If you need something, you're like, oh baby, I can call the mayor's office. Oh baby, I can call so that's not a big, oh, I could write that check. Yeah, that's not a big deal. And the youngins are like, oh, I can write this up for you on the computer in 5 minutes, and I can create this page for you or this website for you. So you have to look at the value of all the contributions that each generation can make and use those resources.
Spoken like a true team-oriented person would. Thank you, baby boomer. And our traditionalists for the last word. Your gem. Any gem you'd like to share with us?
Oh, to hear myself say that I would never get a computer, it seems like I should be apologizing for that. But when I think about from where I came, I really appreciate where you guys are at this stage of life, and I feel like I've had my turn, and I enjoyed my life and all those stages. Oh. If you could see me back then, you would.
I'm looking at you now.
We're pretty good now.
And I really do appreciate the progress that all of you have made, and there's going to be more progress from my grandbabies, and you're gonna say, "Am I that old-fashioned?" You know, but now who knows what that'll mean back then? But just keep doing what you're doing.
Excellent. So as we close this incredible roundtable, green table talk on making sure that we bridge the communication guide, let's revisit the gems of wisdom that our three experts have left us with. First, we're going to seek common ground, and we're going to listen to everyone at the table to make sure all are included. We're going to focus on the strengths and the skills of each generation, and we're not going to leave anyone behind because all people are valued. Our advice to all of us is to make sure that we are inclusive. Make sure the traditionalists are included, the baby boomers, millennials, and Gen Xers. And to our millennials and Gen Xers, remember this, that one day you too shall sit where the traditionalist sits. And that's in a place of someone having to bring you along, because the technology will be totally different when you become a traditionalist. And when you are sitting in a seat, remember that one day you too said, I'm going to bring along that traditionalist. I'm going to do everything I can to include everyone, because this world is beautiful because all of us exist. Until next Green Table Talks, good night.